Good morning and welcome to Talking Credit. We're very lucky to have with us today Brent Cumming from Let's Talk Credit. Good morning, Brent.
Morning, Dan. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, very good, thank you.
I appreciate you sparing your time this morning. We're certainly very excited to announce that we have started to work with you as a strategic partner. We in the past have been involved and will continue to do so with other forums and associations and that sort of thing. So we're really fortunate and honoured to be a strategic partner with you guys and to be part of your forums going forward. So thank you ever so much for having us and taking us on board.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you, Dan.
Thank
and
you.
The team.
So one of the things that I wanted to do from the outset, particularly as this is a new strategic partnership with us, is that not only for our customers, but also for the viewers and listeners to this podcast and vodcast, is to understand a little bit more about Let's Talk Credit. So would you be kind enough to maybe spend a moment to introduce yourself and also your background, and then Let's Talk Credit, as we naturally will go into that?
Yeah. So Brent Cumming, the owner of Let's Talk Credit. I think a lot of people probably know me from working for Experian, almost man and boy. Started in 1988 when I was 18 years old.
I've edited that bit out.
I wish. Yeah, so started in 1988. Used to write the reports before everything became automated. Investigate reports. Used to run a small team there as well. We've been involved in the forums from pretty much like the early 1990s, but had various different roles through Experian, working in sales, and obviously, as I said, writing the reports. So kind of have a lot of the background of where all the information comes from, but then kind of decided to continue more with the forums as the forums grew into a number of forums that took a lot of managing, and I used to do the account management for the companies that were on the forums as well.
Okay.
And they kind of grew over the years to where there was so many forums that it was just more of a full-time job just to manage the whole the whole structure of the forum. So so that was that, and then more recently.
Sorry to interrupt you. Just a question that just occurred to me naturally as you said that. How does that compare now to then? Is it something that is more popular now than it was then? I suppose because there was the technological boundaries back then that maybe we haven't got now.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I don't know whether I've actually thought about it, but I think maybe the economic climate might help with that. I think when times are good, maybe you think, well, do I need to go to a forum? Everybody's paying well, everything's tickety-boo at the minute. As soon as there's any kind of hardship out there in the world or in our country, it's a case of, people are starting to slow down a little bit on the payments, and there's a little bit more difficulty out there collecting the debt. Maybe need to see if anyone else is having a similar kind of issue. So it probably does follow a little bit. If I was to plot the lines of the membership over the years, when the recessions are coming and going, the membership is probably a little bit higher as well. People want to talk to other people and find out what experiences they're having as well.
Yeah. So it's I'm glad I asked the question now, because even in times like now, you can see that it really is important to have that to your repertoire, where you can actually come to a community and discuss your experiences and compare that with theirs. So yeah, absolutely the right time.
Yeah, and obviously we'll touch on what happened during COVID and where we are now. Very different times again. But yeah, so fast forward. I'm trying to think what year it was. Probably 2019, is it? Just before the pandemic, I got made redundant from Experian. It was just a change of direction for the company. And I will say with Experian's help, they helped me move the forums out of Experian and into my vehicle, Let's Talk Credit. And help supported me there, which was great. And very lucky that, I think if not all of the members did follow across to Let's Talk Credit. So, we try to make that as seamless as possible.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't have even known, except for there's a different kind of brand on there. It's Let's Talk Credit instead of Experian. And now it's my own business, and it's been fantastic. I've had a lot of good support from, the partners of Let's Talk Credit, and the members as well have been fantastic as well. So, yeah, good times. Well, for the business, maybe not for what's happening out there in the world at the minute, but yeah, it's good. I've done okay.
So in terms of your experience in forums, have you seen that have you always, out of interest, followed a similar format to what you are doing now? I mean, so I for those that are listening, I have never been to one of Brent's Let's Talk Credit forums until earlier this month, and I've had the pleasure of being on 3 now, and they're very different to that of others that I've been on in the past. So they've got their own uniqueness to them, and I'm not putting anything against any other forums. That they're going to have their membership, their community that really gain benefit out of the way they do it, and others going to prefer yours. And it's the same way with anything, is that you might prefer Coca-Cola or Pepsi, same drink to an extent, but it's slightly different. So I appreciate there'll also be there's no restrictions where you can't go to both and be members of both. So yeah. Have you found that you've sort of changed it or tweaked it, or has it been very consistent that the format works?
I think back in the day, and I imagine there's a difference in the different styles of forums. Experian being a data company, and when the forums first started, I think the oldest forum that Experian had that I now have is the FMCG forum. It's the Food and Drink Forum. Well, I started in 1988. That forum was already running. And there was quite a lot of fraud around at that time, and so there's a lot of intelligence. I think there was the Manchester Guardian Society that Experian bought when I was there, and I think a lot of the people that came to CCN, as it was then, even before Experian, were involved in that forum, and it was very much a community of they were getting targeted by fraud and long fraud. And companies, still doing that, but companies being set up, as a shell, and then trying to, they'd trade with them for 6 months, and then they'd do the big massive order and then disappear. But that was happening then. But a lot of it was just more about the data. We've got a load of companies to discuss, and that's all they went through. And I think over time, and even picking up experience from other forums that I might have attended as well, that we can add a little bit more here. Is there a bit of benchmarking? Is there a bit of best practice? Can we get a guest speaker in to talk about fraud? Get an economist in to talk about the economy and what's happening. And I think that's where it's developed over the years. We try and we go out to the members. What more do you want to know? What information is at the front of mind for you at the minute? And can we get a guest speaker in to talk about it in a bit more detail? So we do feedback forms. We'll send them out to the members while it's been on Zoom, but we'll hand them out at meetings. What was the meeting like? What didn't you like? What would you like to more to understand and learn about? What topics you want to find out about? So we're always just trying to make sure that the members get as much out of these forums as possible, because they're only going to succeed if everybody's all invested and is getting the best out of it. So,
and am I right in thinking that not only have you got the physical forums, and we'll talk about that hybrid virtual model in a second if we may, but they've also got a community that they can log into in between the forums as well, and speak to other members of that community?
Yeah, so we do have an online forum, and it's for the individual forum. So there's a specific one for construction, or for fashion, or for food and drink, FMCG. So they can log a post basically. And I have and the whole thing about the forums it's not always about negative information. It could be positive. It could be I've got a new account. They might want to trade with me a bit more, and I'm not quite sure, what kind of levels I want to trade up to. And they can post that information on there and say, it could be that this company is starting to pay a little bit slower. Is anybody having similar kind of issues? And that will ping off an email to everybody that's in the group, and you have the opportunity to then contribute back in. And it's all password protected as well. So, only the members can get to see within their own group. So quite secure, much better than just sending an email out to anybody when anybody can forward that email on to anybody else. So.
Yeah, and it's we all feel the same. It's human nature, I'm sure, where once you get that comfort or warning that you're not necessarily alone. But what I mean by that is that you have an experience of trading with someone, and I won't put names and anything into the base of this, but you deal with company X, and then they start to pay you a bit slower, and you think, is it just me, or are we doing something wrong, or is there's been a change of contact and I can't get hold of anybody now? And by having that community, and certainly when I had the pleasure of joining you, you then get other people who raise their hand on Zoom or do so physically whilst they're in the meeting and say, yeah, we're dealing with them, and actually, yeah, we've had the same thing. So you get that warmth that, okay, it's not just us, and okay, how have you worked with that? And oh, we've got a new contact, have you tried such and such, let me email you. But everybody helps each other. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, there's certainly rules and regulations about what we can and can't say, etc. And I think they
in
need
that
to
closed user group.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that person who's asking the question has got to make their own business decisions about whether they are going to go ahead and pay with them. And it's all about getting those pieces of the jigsaw. It might be that they still might want to trade, but they're completely ready for any kind of issues that they might have with them going forward.
On pro forma or
exactly. So they do need to make sure that they take it in in relation to the size of the deal that they're going to be doing with, and the trade side. But I mean, there's always the other side of the coin. There'll be somebody else around the table that said, well, I've been trading with them for 5 years, and
correct.
So it's all about you go to you go to a credit reference agency, and you read the newspapers, you read the articles, you go on Google, you go to a credit forum, credit insurance, and you've got to piece all that information together and go, right, what am I going to do, whether I'm going to trade with this company or not, and
to what level.
Picking up all those jigsaw pieces is part of that puzzle.
Well, I thought it was excellent. I really did, and I'm not just saying that for the basis of this. It was a real eye opener to me in terms of what that community can bring to its members. So, full credit, no pun intended, to you for doing that. So one of the things that I wanted to do was. Probably how many times a week do you say this? But I wanted you to just for our listeners and viewers to gain an idea of the forums that you run, please. So I know that they're very industry specific. Is that fair to say? So what I want is for our listeners to be listening to this and go, is there a forum for me?
I've just setting up a new one. Actually, we've got a new forum coming up in July. But so we've got FMCG, which is food, drink, tobacco. So the big food manufacturers, drink manufacturers, and tobacco. The oldest forum that we've got. And we do an export forum for that, just very occasionally. A couple of times a year, we do it on Zoom, and for the people that export, and they'll have a bit of a chat about what it's like trading with this company, this country. It could be this company in this country. Obviously, the Ukraine issue at the minute is causing lots of issues. Brexit's caused issues of actually getting goods around Europe and the world. So we do a fashion forum. So the big.
Sorry, Brent. So just sorry. So just so I understand that. So there's an FMCG UK.
Yes.
And there's an FMCG international, or that's a
export.
Export. So they're two. So you someone could come along to both, or they could come along to one or the other.
Yeah. So if you're a member of the FMCG UK, then and you export, then you're welcome to join
Okay,
it's not a separate fee or anything like that. It's, you're a UK and you export. Let's just get, half the people that are on the UK version might only export. So
yeah,
just do a bit of a call for those. And it's the same for the fashion as well. So we do a fashion UK, and then some of those only trade with companies that are in the, England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of them that export. So we'll do a fashion export forum on Zoom for that.
Yeah. And this was one of the ones I was on last week. And I have to say, a great community there, some lovely people, but, there was some really high numbers on there. There's a lot of people joining and prioritizing their time to come and do that and be party to it and also contribute towards it, not just sitting there watching. I don't think there was anybody that didn't say at least something.
Yeah. I mean, there's some very good groups, great members. It's a little bit difficult trying to do everything on Zoom. You've got people in the room, you've got people on Zoom as well, and but it's working quite well. It is. We've also got a construction forum, so that's general construction. So there's hire companies, plumbers, merchants, there's builders, aggregates, and that's a big group, and that's growing. Probably one of the fastest growing. We've got 30 plus members on that group.
Is there a mixture of size of companies on that? I haven't asked this before. Is there the smaller companies, or do you tend to find it's the higher numbers, the higher volume?
Yeah, so there's some national, that cover national, and then there are some more regional companies as well.
Okay, good.
But yeah, we hold the meetings, one in the East Midlands and one in London. So there's 4 meetings here and they alternate.
Okay.
And Zoom kind of helps actually, because if you are, in Kent and the meeting is in East Midlands, then great, you can join by Zoom. There's the benefit of that. And they will attend the meeting that's in London, which is fine. So I think Zoom will help going forward, to allow people to join instead of spending 3.5 hours in the day just to travel one way for a meeting, which is what we used to do and not even think about it before.
Absolutely,
so then we've got the construction forum. We've got, so the new one is that we're just promoting now, that's going to be in Newcastle, and that's going to be Construction North. So that will be for predominantly companies that supply their goods in the north. So it'll be kind of the northeast and northwest, and the first meeting's been held in Newcastle. So that's a new one that we're just setting up at the minute.
Again, I suppose can you still Zoom that? Is that still a hybrid? So you can.
Well, for this first meeting, we just want to get people around the table. We just want to see who's interested in attending, see the whites of their eyes, just make sure we
check their passport, make sure they are from the north first of all.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Then we've got a couple for BETA, so that's British Home Enhancements Trade Association. It's a trade association that represents companies in the housewares and the DIY sector. So all the companies that kind of sit there, and I run 2 forums for them. So I run a housewares forum, and I will run a DIY forum for them. Also, obviously, the last few years it's been on Zoom. I think we're looking at maybe July that might be a kind of a hybrid meeting. I think that's just being looked into, and I think they're just canvassing the members to see what they want to do.
Yeah, I suppose that part of the reason for then separating those two, all under BETA, but separating them is that I'm sure that there's some consistent discussions, but equally you can then become much more honed in on the uniqueness of, like you say, the DIY and gardening, and then the homeware.
Yeah, that's right, because they want to talk about different companies. So the DIY companies want to talk about the B&Qs and those kind of companies, and the housewares want to talk about something that fits in with their product goes. Yeah,
makes sense. Yeah.
So we split that up last year, and that's going really well. We've got a polymer distributors and compounders forum. So that's specific really for that they have to be members of the British Plastics Federation, and they are polymer distributors.
Okay.
That one's been going for about 15 years as well. We've got cosmetics and fragrances. So that's just as you'd imagine, some big companies on there, on that group. And we're looking to expand that one as well. We've got a few new members that just joined that. Metals and steel, that's a spin-off from a metals forum and a steels forum that got left by, I think, Graydon a couple of years ago, decided not to do that one. I think there was another company that was running the steel one. So I picked those up and put them together. And we've had that for about a year now, so that's going well. We're hoping to have our first face-to-face meeting in June. My first face-to-face meeting with them. We'll still do the hybrid as well.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of meetings, a couple of forums in Ireland. So we've got an FMCG Ireland, so food, drink, tobacco in Ireland, and an oil and fuel card. Things have changed over in Ireland at the minute, so we've kind of put those two meetings together. So when you think about it, a lot of the topics for discussion, benchmarking, guest speaker, you can have them all together and to talk about, and listen and learn and share that kind of information. And then we do have the accounts for discussion that follows. We break them out into separate rooms so they can have their little chats about their own customer base there. So, that works really well. We're going over to Dublin for the first time in a couple of years in June. I'm just hoping that there's going to be a few people that turn up to the meeting and they're not all on Zoom, and I'm just the only one saying
in a room on your own.
But I will have a few pints of Guinness just to console myself.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I will. But we have a couple of
people that are dealing with Ireland and those that are based in Ireland.
Well, it's a bit of both, actually. So they are Ireland members. So, the companies that are based in Ireland trading with companies in Ireland. But we do have a couple of members from the UK forum that fly over and attend. So they're members of both, basically. We've got a couple of UK members that are members of the Ireland because they've got customers that they trade with in Ireland, and it's great because they're sat around people that's in that country and have got, there's a different way of collecting debt to Ireland as it is to in the UK, and you'll get that with international. The people that attend the international forums will be like, you might want to have an Italian speaker that collects money in Italy, and it's you might want to have an Irish speaker that collects money in Ireland. So there's all the different ways and of doing things in different countries. So so that would be all of the forums as well. And I've got another one that I am working on at the minute that we're hoping to get out probably in Q3.
Okay.
So
watch this space.
Watch this space. Yeah.
Brilliant. I was very careful to make sure I check this with you first of all. Within the respectfulness of confidentiality and what goes on in those groups, what I wanted to share with people is the issues that collectively people were finding. So, for example, one of the things that I learned from being on free forums with you this month is that the challenges that people are having collecting payment when there is restructuring going on within the company that they're trying to get payment from. So you've always dealt with Bob in accounts, and I've got a great relationship with Bob or Mary, and as a result, you then go and chase an invoice or that gets queried for some reason, and you go and speak to Bob, and actually that's been automated. Bob's been automated, or Mary's moved to a different part of the industry because there's a hell of a lot of restructuring going on. I think we can consistently see. So for everybody then to sit on that call and say, yeah, we're struggling with that at the moment. And actually we found that by going on to setting up on this portal, actually our invoices have been dealt with really quickly. And have you've spoken to Anna on this number, and actually Anna's brilliant, and she often gets a response very quick, a lot quicker. And we found this, it was something consistently so labeling that as restructuring, from a credit perspective, the challenges that can create. In the free forums that I was in, that was fairly consistent. What have you found over the last sort of month or so that is really some of the I don't want to call it issues because it could be positive. Some of the experiences, yeah, that's the way to word it. Some of the experiences that collectively you're seeing.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting with what we've had with COVID. I remember at the beginning of COVID, instead of having the meetings every 3 months, we obviously flipped to Zoom very quickly. And for all the forums, I mean, I worked so hard because I was doing weekly forums. So I was having like 10 Zoom calls, or 12 Zoom calls, and we were doing it weekly because people were like, oh my God, I'm working from home. I can't go in the office. What's happening? And, what's happening with everybody else. So, at the very beginning, in kind of March, April, May, June, we were doing weekly meetings, and that kind of spread out to fortnightly. And actually, looking back now, a lot of the members will go, they from a debt collection point of view and from a DSO point of view, it was probably our best times as a company. Our ledgers had never been so clean.
Interesting.
We were collecting record amounts every month, and you can say that's probably down to the loans and the grants and all of that all the support that was there. We still bought things. We're buying stuff online. So a lot of these fashion companies were suddenly, if they didn't have a website, they were setting up websites. So there were people were still selling the product. I mean, there were winners and losers, don't get me wrong. There were some companies that really struggled with it. But now we were talking about the construction forum. They were saying, I look back on those times when it was COVID, and actually we did really well. We feel like we've gone back to pre-COVID times now, where people weren't paying the best. People weren't
really.
They were querying accounts, they were querying invoices, and they feel like it's kind of gone back to pre-COVID. COVID is that kind of golden time when no companies have gone bust to speak of really, and it's before COVID they were. I mean, you talk to the insolvency practitioners. We have PwC as a partner, and they how are you? Yeah, we're not very busy. They've not been for years.
Yeah.
To the point where they'll talk about that some of the smaller IPs are buying other IPs because there's just not enough insolvencies out there at the minute. But construction, it's quite interesting that some people say that the construction industry is the first to go into recession, but also the first to come out of recession.
Okay.
So from what I listened to over the last couple of forums, we've had 5 forums over the last couple of weeks. Fashion were doing quite well. No great shakes as regards bad debts and that kind of thing. Cosmetics were doing well. Construction, everybody was saying, we're getting more queries, we're sending out more legal letters, payment plans. So is the noise coming from construction first, because it always does hit construction first, and for the others it will follow. So some very interesting times going forward. And that's why people will just want to attend the meetings, because they're like, how are you getting on? If you're in the fashion and you're being paid, are you thinking, is it just me? But if the whole industry is, when does it slow down for you? So very interesting times coming up.
Yeah. So it was from the 5 forums you've had, then construction being one of those, they were showing that we were going back to pre-COVID issues, and the rest of them not necessarily seeing any signs of that. But I suppose even from the ones that I was in, that they were talking about automation coming in place and restructuring, and I put in my notes here. They interestingly, they were talking, weren't they, about the fact that shipping costs weren't as much of a problem now, which is different to what I necessarily saw from standard press and media.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back, a year or 18 months, shipping containers had gone from 3 or 4 grand, to 20, 25 grand, you know,
Really?
and you couldn't get them either. So, you know, suddenly that cost, you know, if you relied on your product from China,
Yeah.
which, you know, a lot of companies do, which, you know, that's the way it is. When you've got to manage those costs, I mean, one of the construction companies, you know, they make tiles, and they're talking about the price of, they've got to have furnaces running day and night, you know, to make the tiles. And so the gas is just, the cost of the gas is just so much now. It's just gone through the roof. You know, we've got pricing increases through. You know, the cost of things means that nobody wants to put the prices up, but you've got to put your prices up because your costs have just gone through the roof. So
you've got to make a margin.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you're trying to manage that within your own business, and then you're still trying to get money out of other companies as well. You know, so, and, you know, just talking about sometimes it's not always about whether that company is going to pay you or not, for the risk. I mean, maybe Amazon comes up quite a lot, or some of the, you know, supermarkets or whatever. Not necessarily you're worried that you're not going to get your money out of them, but how do you get your money out of them?
How quickly?
What process have I got to do? What portal have I got to sign up for?
You
know, dealing with Amazon, you know, I think everybody knows you've got to do it their way on how you want to trade with them, because it's such a huge, you know, machine. You can't get them to do it your way. You've got to do it their way. And how do I actually do that?
And is it very difficult to actually speak to someone physically? I got that impression when
you don't get to speak to anybody.
You send an email into this, and then you get an automated email back saying we will contact you back within. It's in a queue. You might get a ticket.
You know, I've done a forum with Laurie Beagle at Forums International. We've done, you know, I think we've had 3 Amazon meetings now, which is just one big sharing pot of information. How do you trade with Amazon, and what burns have you had? What tips have you got that you can pass on to others? And that's really the essence of what all the forums are. Is, you know, the credit professionals and the credit community basically want to help each other. You know, this is how we do it. It worked for us, and I'm happy for you to do it the same way. And that's the great thing about the forums, is that everybody just wants to help each other. And it's nice to kind of be able to bring everybody together to do that.
Yeah, no, I totally got that flavour. You know, it really shows the strength of why you should be part of that. So, well, brilliant. In fact, thank you ever so much, Brent. I think that, you know, that really gives us a great introduction to those that don't know Let's Talk Credit or forums as a whole. You know, certainly I would implore anybody to get in touch with you and discuss maybe even coming along and trialing one out for a time and seeing whether it's right for them going forward. So what we'll do is that we'll post all your social media, your direct links, your email address here afterwards, and then if anybody wants to get in touch, hopefully they can do so.
Yeah, brilliant. Really enjoyed chatting with you, Dan. Looking forward to working with you going forward.
Thank you. Lovely. All right, have a great day, Brent. Lovely to speak to you.
All right.
Take care.
See you. Bye-bye.